DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We are joined now by David Locke. His weekly appearance is brought to you by the Murdoch Auto Team. David, good morning.
Good morning, guys. What a pleasure. Friday mornings, DJ and PK. I haven't gotten to do this in a while. I always feel so empty when I wake up on a Friday morning and I don't get to talk to DJ and PK, and I don't have to worry about that. So, I mean, I will be honest, I'd rather be in Maui not talking to you than in Salt Lake Park City talking to you, but I do love talking to you.
That's weird because on my phone just came up, you know how photos will come up? It just came up the Maui trip that we took in January. I'm literally looking at it right now, and you brought it up, Maui.
There you go. So,
weird.
I mean, I'll be really honest. I miss you guys not enough to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning in Maui to see you or to talk to you. That, if I'm being honest.
I miss you enough to where I would travel to Maui to stay with you.
You know, that is so heartwarming. Do you like me enough to... Never mind. We won't find out how far you go.
To visit you in Maui? Yes.
Yeah, and if it's my place and I'm paying for it, you're really willing to come, right?
Then I'm madly in love.
Okay, good. Just wanted to check. Just wanted to make sure I understood the parameters which we're speaking of here.
That's what friends are for.
He gets pictures of Maui. What popped up on my computer right as you started talking, the NFL kept its most advanced data hidden for years. Now it's finally on sale. The NFL, always one more way to make a buck. Would you pay for NFL analytics? Do you love analytics that much?
Well, I pay for NBA analytics, so I don't see why I wouldn't pay for NFL analytics.
Work is the easy answer to that. The NBA stuff helps you work.
Yeah, I would probably pay for a lot of the NBA analytics anyway.
Okay.
What are they putting out there?
I don't know. It's a Wall Street Journal story. I haven't read it yet.
Oh,
it just popped up.
Wow, look at you subscribing to the Wall Street Journal.
No, it's on Twitter. I'm not subscribing to the Wall Street Journal. If I did, I would know it, but I don't. Just popped up. It's essentially an ad. All right, the Utah Jazz made a bunch of moves since you were, or while you were out sunning yourself and golfing and going to the beach in Maui. Do you expect more moves before the season starts?
No.
This is it. This is the team.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the NBA is dormant right now. It's kind of like sacrilegious to make a move right now. This is the one time everybody, I think, takes vacation, gets time off, and all of that. So I can't imagine. I mean, obviously something could happen in training camp, but most teams that are pretty optimistic of where they are. I can't think of a team right now that's in desperate need of something that we have. Now something could change and someone gets hurt or something happens, and then suddenly somebody that's on our roster right now doesn't look appealing to anyone else, and then I guess so that's someone calling us. And then I guess the other answer is, what's ever going to happen with Brandon Ingram? I don't see that play making sense for us right now. So, at this point, I think the 2024-25 season is going to be largely about finding out what we have in 6 different players. And that's going to be the delicate dance for Will Hardy of, no free minutes and playing with a purpose. At the same time, with 3 first-round draft picks coming in the upcoming draft, we really need to have a pretty clear idea as best you can on the rookies. But on 7 players, really, I guess, Keontae, Taylor, Bryce, and Walker, along with the 3 rookies.
Yeah, I totally agree. How about the philosophy then? And, we understand you've spoken about it. We've referenced it many times of the no free minutes, but maybe allowing them to play through more mistakes.
Yeah, I think you earn that, though, right? So if you've shown, like last year, if we take Taylor, for example, Taylor in camp compared to Kelly and John Collins, it wasn't close, right? And so That's really free minutes. If he had just if Will had just announced Taylor Hendricks is our 9th pick and he's going to start and play 26 minutes a night no matter what, that's really free minutes. I would hope that we come to camp this year, Taylor with the experience he gained last year, little growth, the body looked way better. Our strength and conditioning staff, I thought, did an incredible job. I thought he looked really different in Summer League. And he comes out, and it's clear that, like, okay, like he's probably the best power forward we have, or, you know, depending how you're going to play him as a 4-3 with Lowry, and he's earned that. Then I think you start to give him some leeway. But you can't just get the minutes and then get the leeway also. Like, Keontae's probably at this point earned the leeway, right? Like, he's going to be our starting point guard or one of our starting guards. And he's 2 for 11, putting out the effort, but not shooting it well. You leave him out there.
Right. I buy that. And the others haven't yet, but they've got to do it.
What you can't do, though, and the key to that was he's putting out the effort. Like, I don't care who these young guys are. When they come out in game 34 and we're in New Orleans after 3 days off in New Orleans, woo! And, you know, you're running around like dead man walking, like, you got to pull that. Because the minute that gets acceptable, you've got a tough road to get over that. Once you start allowing that, you're in trouble. And I think the biggest lesson recently from any team is what happened with Houston. And what happened with Houston was that they had all these young players. They were awful under maybe Steven Silas is a great guy, but there's a feeling he lacks in direction as a head coach. And Jalen Green was abundantly available at the trade deadline this year. And then all of a sudden, he goes nuts in the second half of the season where he's now played under Ime Udoka, played under structure, played with Dylan Brooks, played with Fred VanVleet, played with veteran players. The offense starts to run around Alfred Sengun, then Sengun gets hurt, and Jalen Green goes nuts. And you're like, oh, that's why we drafted him number 2. But they were within, a taker of trading him at the deadline because in the 2.5 years of non-structured, no expectation, no standard basketball, he looked awful, and they were about to quit on him because they didn't want to extend him at the end of this year. Boy, that could have been a really catastrophic error. And you just got to make sure that your guys are in a structure where you can actually evaluate them. And I think that's why re-signing Lowry is so important, because I would like to forget every minute I saw from Keontae George last year without Jordan Clarkson and Lowry Markkanen on the floor, because I generally think they were unfair. Like, here's a guy who's probably the 175th or 200th best player in the NBA last year, and you're asking him to be the best player on the floor? Well, he looked like crap doing it, not studying. And so I'd like to erase that from my memory along with every high school song lyric and phone number that I still have and get that off my hard drive so that it doesn't impact my thought process when I think of Keontae, because I just think those were unfair minutes. But if we had traded Lowry, that's a structure by which a player has any chance to show if he's getting any better.
Are all of these young guys going to be with the Jazz, or are some of them ticketed to the G League, or do we get to watch them all develop, for better or worse?
I think the roster is set in a manner that it's available for all of them to be with the Jazz if they play well and have decent camps. And then I feel like there's a player that's sitting behind each one of them that is not dramatically different or brings a little something that would allow, hey, you know what, why don't you go play 30 minutes a night instead of 12 in the G League this week? Patty Mills is going to play backup point guard. Why don't you go, Kyle Filipowski, why don't you go play Drew Eubanks is going to play? Like, they're viable, solid NBA players who know how to play. Eubanks was really quite good in some stuff in Phoenix last year to dig into the second-tier numbers. And so I think you can you have the ability, like, Isaiah Collier, if he has a good camp, comes out ready, yeah, it'd be nice to see him for 15, 20 minutes a night as your backup point guard. On the other end, if there's a moment where he feels like he's getting overwhelmed or there's some value to having him actually play 30 and have him actually kind of lead a team or maybe shoot a little bit more or work on his shot a little bit more, I think you have a roster that allows you the flexibility to do that. And the same thing with Bryce and Cody. Luke, totally viable NBA player. You can play him, and you could get Cody and Bryce down to the G League to get time if you want it.
What do you think the philosophy is behind the Mills signing?
I think Will Hardy loves him from his time in San Antonio. And so I think in a year in which there will likely be more L's than W's, it's really valuable to have guys on the roster that will hold things together and set a model and do things the right way. It's really a problem if your 13th, 14th, and 15th guys are leading people astray. And so I think, the Eubanks, Luke, Mills signings are all guys that have impeccable reputations of how they conduct themselves as professionals and how they do things. And in the case of, I think, both Eubanks and Mills, people in our organization have seen them work day to day. So I think that's the concept behind it. And then also they're viable so that if, in fact, an injury or someone wears out or someone needs a break, you can play them.
15 back-to-back, 7 and 8 game homestands and road trips. Aside from your personal comfort, does that matter for the team at all as they go through rebuild mode, or the schedule is really less important than ever, especially because you don't even know what looks like a hard game on paper? The other team may sit 2 guys, and it changes everything anyway.
Yeah, no, I think, obviously I want as many road games as possible prior to Christmas is always my rule. Keep me in Utah from Christmas to April 15th as much as possible, please. Only just a little addiction problem I have that I need to, deal with. But so the schedule is good now. I think we played 18 of our 41 road games before Christmas. So I'm very pleased. I think, there's a stretch in December that looks like it could be really brutal, but actually we don't know because the NBA Cup games. But if you can kind of see where the hockey team is, and the hockey team is, I think, home for the front half of that little stretch. So I would assume that we're playing another road game, then home for 1, and then back out for 5. I think if you now look at December and assume that it's a home game on the first spot for the NBA Cup and then a road game for the second, I think, don't we do something kind of crazy like play 14 or 15 games in different cities like that? Something of that sort?
Yeah, something of that sort. There could be a lot of time on the road.
So, I think that's just that'll probably be the make or break part of the season. It could probably start, I haven't looked at who our opponents are in that sense, could probably start okay, surprise some people, win some games, and then that stretch when the margins are tight and then you start to get worn down is probably where things could make or break.
How much do you think that the Jazz are communicating with Markkanen about the plans or potential plans? He's a great player. He's signed on, but obviously he's looking at least 1, if not 2 more seasons of heavy losing before they can start to get better. And I'm just wondering if he accepts it based on the knowledge that they've given him. What do you think of that theory?
Communicated with him well. That communication is a little difficult, right? You can't really tell them we're never going to trade you because that's not true. So, I don't know exactly what we believe in you. Here's $200 million. Okay, well, that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
We want you here. That's true until someone offers us something that's better for our franchise, and then we're going to trade you. That's just the that's not Lowry. That's just the truth in the league. I mean, it's really the truth for everybody, including Luka Doncic, except for the fact that there's no package that's available to Dallas ever that would be better than Luka Doncic, so he kind of knows he'll never be traded. And seemingly the same thing with Giannis in Milwaukee, but again, you never know. They have a bad year this year, then they're against they're going to trade Giannis, right? So I think you're communicating with him, but it's like you don't want to be on the hook for just lying to someone. I always think the one that I am skeptical of is when the player says, "Oh, the team said they'd send me to the best situation for me." I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's really true. I don't think any team's ever actually said that. That might be what you heard, but I'm pretty certain that's not what they think they said. So I always hear that at trade deadline, like, "Oh, so-and-so's a liar. They said they'd send you to the da-da-da, and I went to, Minnesota. And why they said I'd go to a good place." Like, oh, well, maybe they deemed Minnesota a good place. So I always think that's a little questionable when I hear that from someone because I just am not entirely sure I think that's true. So I think you have to be really careful. But I mean, Lowry in his Holly Rowe interview on the Lofo or Front Row podcast and in some of his other quotes, I mean, he seems like he's got it. Like, okay, I'm going to be the man. We're going to have a hard time winning games. We're going to try to win as soon as we can. And I really like Utah, so let's see what we got.
Do you think he'd really like Utah if he went on a trip with you to Maui? Or do you think that he'd start changing his ranking of the states here in the old US of A?
Well, I'm not sure what you're really asking there. Lowry would have a perfectly good time if he came on a trip with our family to Maui. And his kids would too, because his kids are super cute. My kids would play with him all the time, so he'd get all his time off, and we'd just play with his kids. So he'd be great.
More likely to go on a Maui trip with you, me, PK, or Lowry?
Unquestionably, PK.
There it is,
he might
PK.
He might get in my suitcase.
Well, I don't know what to say.
You've rendered PK speechless. Good work, David.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. What can I have a quick? It's August. I need my quick Cliff Note summary. Utah, top of the Big 12. BYU, near the bottom. Give me the why on each.
Utah's done a lot of winning the last 5 years, and there is not a team with the pedigree and the consistency and the roster that they have, so they get the top spot. Oklahoma State and Kansas State get a lot of respect, so it's not going to be easy or a slam dunk, but they are definitely the favorite going in. For BYU, and they were 2-7 in the league, and they still haven't named a starting quarterback, and that alone, those two things alone, will put you in the bottom third of the league.
Which of those two do you think is most likely to be wrong?
I think there's a better chance that BYU moves to the middle than Utah moves to the middle, if that's what you're getting at. I mean, if Cam gets hurt, Oklahoma State and Kansas State can win that league in a heartbeat. There's not that big a gap.
And then Big 12 question, are Oklahoma State and Kansas State actually any good?
Yeah.
I mean, like how good? Like, are they top? What are they really? Like, if they're in the SEC, are they finishing fourth or are they finishing ninth?
Yeah, that's really hard to measure now because these leagues, it looks like they're really not going to play each other very much. So there's very little data. They're all in their own bubbles.
If they're in the Big 10, are they finishing fourth or are they finishing ninth?
Fourth. I don't think the middle. I don't know that the middle of the Big 10's that good, and I'm not sure I buy that. The top's very good, as I think the playoffs have shown.
So you figure in the SEC, Kansas State and Oklahoma State might be ninth. In the Big 10, they might be fourth.
I don't know about ninth. That seems a long way.
Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, Alabama.
I don't know that Oklahoma's great, but okay. Texas has already lost their top two running backs.
Okay.
I think LSU's got to reload a bit, so they might be down a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of big brands there, but I don't know that they're all going to be great at the same time.
Okay. And one of those Mississippis is all fired up. Our SEC people are all fired up.
Yep.
I was listening to our SEC preview the other night, so it's fine.
Okay. Thank you, David. We got to run.
Okay.
You're the man. David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz. When we come back, Kurt Schmidt, Chief Soccer Officer for Real Salt Lake. That was a lot of moves right at the deadline, right at the end of the summer transfer window. We'll talk with him about the new guys next. Stay with us. DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone.